Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another video to discuss the exciting update we saw from CA relating to Total War Warhammer and the free early adopter bonus faction that we will be receiving for those who pre-order Total War Warhammer 2. The trailer was released yesterday. A full cinematic trailer, which is a little surprising considering most of the trailers up now have actually been using the in-game engine. So probably coming out of the Total War Warhammer 2 budget there. The trailer definitely looks gorgeous. We're going to look at that first, and then we'll jump right into discussing what Norsca is supposed to be getting in the upcoming release. So yeah, let's go.
We seek the monsters that you fear the most. We chase the nightmares that haunt your cowardly dreams. The deadlier the prey, the more we exult in the hunt, the more we honor our gods. This harsh land breeds the savage, and we revel in it. The old world calls. Ripe for our taking. We fought monsters, and we became them.
Okay, that trailer was absolutely awesome. I absolutely love it. I'm not going to nitpick what units were in there because we have already been given the full roster of what Norsca is going to get. But then they did give us some early screen caps of the in-game Norsca, so we're going to look at those and then discuss. Unfortunately, the main Total War page, they actually don't give all that much information. This is all fairly vague. They just kind of mentioned there's a few unique lords. Mentioned there's a monster on quest. It's all fairly vague. Actually, the description on the Steam page is actually significantly better from what I found. So that's all I'll actually be hopping on over to. So yeah, that's what we'll be looking at. So immediately here we're going to look at the screenshots first because some of those are a little interesting, definitely. So here we can see, and I do believe this is Throg. I'm not the best with Warhammer fantasy lore, but we can see some of the unique units that are coming in. Throg, who's going to be one of the legendary lords, I do believe. This is him. The Fimir, which I've never even heard of, but I did see a bunch of forum discussions about the skin wolves, which we can see here, who are kind of like werewolves or shapeshifters, as from what I gathered. Ice trolls. I do believe these are some sort of frost wolves or the variant, the Norsca variant of warhounds. Back here, it looks like we have some marauders. The Fimir were a unit I hadn't even heard of before. I didn't know they existed. But definitely exciting. Apparently, they're some sort of amphibious lizard type race with one eye, and they definitely look pretty intimidating. I'm definitely interested in seeing them in game. Here we can see Norsca beating up on Empire. Definitely poor swordsman here. Don't have much of a chance against Throg, the Troll King over there. Next up, we got what does appear to be the Frostworm. Unfortunately, this does look like a reskinned. This does seem to be just a reskinned Chaos Dragon. We're granted without a mount, and the blue tint is definitely pretty awesome looking. But it is a little. It would have been nice if it had its own unique model. Nonetheless, looks very cool. We can see some of the mammoths in the background. Those are in some of the other screenshots, though. I do believe this is the Chaos Giant, actually, right here. He's a little hunched over. Looks to be less lanky than the other giants. Looks to be like stockier and kind of beefier looking. So definitely I think an interesting model, assuming that this is the Chaos Giant. And compared to the Mammoth in size, I definitely think that probably is the Giant. Going on, this is some absolutely gorgeous imagery of the Mammoths. There are 3 variants of the Mammoths. From what we gathered here down below, we can see the Fimir again, we can see the Skin Wolves. Supposedly there are 3 different variants of the Mammoth. One with a Chaos War Shrine on this back, one with a Howdah, or a generic Mammoth, and then Norsca Mammoth, and then a Feral Mammoth. I assume the Feral Mammoth is going to function like the Feral Manticore, because there's been no mention of Norsca getting that Rampage mechanic, so it's not. I don't think it's going to be like the Feral Lizardmen units that go on a Rampage if they drop too low in leadership. I think the Mammoth is basically just going to be like the Feral Manticore, maybe a little less leadership, no shooting units on the back, probably something like that in relation to the Howdah Mammoths. The one with the Howdah, yeah, we'll discuss that a bit later, but probably just something that's similar to the Arachnarch Spider with shooting units on the back. And the one with the Chaos Shrine, I assume will be some sort of AoE buff, kind of like a Mortis Engine or something for Undead. Then finally we have this nice shot here of Wulfric the Wanderer with wolves. I don't know if he's with a wolf. I don't actually know if he's going to get a wolf as like a sort of like Scarsnake comes with Gobla. As a unit. I don't know if that's something that Wulfric is going to be. He did have a wolf next to him at the end of the Norsca trailer as well. So I'm not sure if that's just going to be a unit that comes with him, or if it's just there for looking pretty on the screenshot. Here we can see again that giant. He does look, I think, definitely a little. I think to believe this is the giant. He was looking pretty stocky. Although we don't really get too good of a shot of the Marauders. These do seem to be Marauder chariots, but on most of the Marauder units we already have, or not most of them, but a fair amount of them we already have in game already. I'm not sure what these are. I don't know if the Frost Trolls are coming in as a one-man unit. These don't look like Fimir. They look too big to be Fimir, and they're too small to be a giant. So I assume these are Frost Trolls. And I'm not sure if the Frost Trolls. I don't know if this is just to make them look like an epic sort of battle lineup, or if Frost Trolls are going to be a unit that comes in single models. If anybody knows, feel free to post about that down below. So yeah, I do believe that's it for Chaos, the screenshots, or for Norsca. And so let's go right on, right on to the description. Conquer the Old World, yes, Norsca, and Wintertooth. I'm not actually sure what the starting positions are. Now, according to lore, I do believe Wulfric is from the Aisling tribe, so you can probably be spawning in one of the territories they control. Throg, I'm not sure. I could be wrong, of course, with Wulfric, since later on he just kind of wanders around as like a champion who, sort of like Karn the Betrayer, from what I gathered, in 40k, except instead of serving Khorne specifically, he serves all the Chaos Gods. Just kind of roams around, killing the toughest monsters he can. I guess kind of a little bit like Karn. Throg, who is the Troll King, probably starting in Wintertooth. I don't know what Wintertooth will be. That might be close-ish to Kislev, since I do believe he gets some benefits for capturing the Troll Country. Now, yeah, new lords. I do believe there's only one lord from Norsca, actually, one lord type. 3 new heroes. Dark Gods, and this I think they're trying to set up. There was some talk about in Warhammer 3 we're gonna get different Chaos Gods, and they're gonna be Chaos is going to be much more detailed. Currently, Chaos is kind of like just Chaos Warriors. There's not really any demon units. They're basically just a human army with some monsters. And there's no specific Chaos benefits. Obviously, there are some champions, like Sigvald is the champion of Slaanesh, but for most part, the Chaos we have now is not God specific, and does not like necessarily, and doesn't have anything to get favors from one god. There are some events, of course, like pick Zinch or pick Slaanesh, or you have the Pleasure Palace of Slaanesh debuff that hurts your army's strategic movement, that sort of thing. But it's all generic gods. There's very little of the gods actually mentioned in there. So I think that they're trying to do is they're trying to start making a faction that's getting more starts to become more specifically in favor of one of the gods. I think that there might be in one of the later Warhammers, a rework of Chaos, or definitely some new Chaos factions there to specifically work for the different Chaos gods. Um, this looks interesting, the Monster Hunt trait, and I do believe there's better descriptions down below of these. New roster of units. There are some, as we saw, the reskins, but some look definitely, or not look, they are definitely new. The Frostbite combat ability definitely looks interesting, and Rage and Berserk also looks interesting. So, and at this moment, all I can do is speculate, but I will go through and discuss. Yeah, they spawn Norsca, they raid. Obviously, the incomes are raiding and sacking. So, given that they, I think this is going to be fairly similar to Wood Elves in a sense. Wood Elves also have where they have a solid base of operations. That'll be in Norsca instead of Athelloren, obviously. But then you go out and you raise or sack or loot other civilizations on the Warhammer world to get your main sources of income. That's kind of how Elves currently play a lot, since they get a lot of money from looting and raising. So I think that they might be a little bit like the Wood Elves there. And then the units, it does seem that they will be fairly aggressive of action with their fairly short-range skirmish units, no artillery as far as I could tell, and lots of monsters and infantry, and especially fairly quick infantry. It is interesting that there's other mechanic where in post-battle they can set up a monolith to one of the gods. And I do, people were discussing this in the forums. They were saying that the how was it? I do believe it was the crow was the symbol of I think the symbol of Nurgle. The eagle is Zinch. The serpent is Slanesh, and the hound is Khorne. I'm not actually sure if that's how it is. I don't personally. But basically, each animal represents one of the Chaos Gods, and so you're trying to get favor. And I'm not sure if these will be sort of like some of the Elven Outpost upgrades, where you get more income and more. I believe it's more income and then like more growth or something from in your home region when you build a certain building in there's outposts, or if it's going to be like a buff that affects the local region, sort of like the Waystone buff for the elves, where it increases your regen in that region, or if it's just going to be like maybe both. Maybe you'll get like some benefits for in the local region as well as on the provincial level, or on the global level. There's also the other elf one that increases your damage output, so that might be something similar there. It might be like if you invest in Khorne, say, you'll get like plus 2% melee attack or something, and that's obviously not going to be significant on its own. But if you've raised a lot of settlements, that can easily skyrocket up to a significant amount. And it might be spreading chaos corruption as well, just like the Beastmen ones do currently. The Beastmen raise a settlement. Unique units or characters, that does sound a little interesting. Not sure how that's going to work out. If you're going to get like a hero, or like there's actually going to be unique characters that like, you can't get otherwise. And then this is also interesting. I do like these unique battle campaign mechanics. Currently, especially the 4 basic factions are not incredibly, but fairly lackluster in their campaign objectives. It's just conquer your territory and wipe out some faction, and usually drive off chaos. That's kind of the gist of it. And then the Beastmen and the Chaos is just destroy a bunch of things, then maybe win a battle at the end. This definitely seems more like a Bretonia-esque thing, where you have to build a certain amount of monoliths to a certain god, which ticks off that god, and then you have to fight them across the course of several battles. So sort of Bretonia-esque, I guess, there, or Beastmen-esque, where you have lots of epic battles towards the end. Now, monster hunting, which is interesting. This does say, this definitely seems interesting. It might mean that, like, I'm not sure if these are going to be like legendary, sort of Regiment of Renown-esque monsters. if it's just going to be like a monster, say you go on a hunt and you can get a feral manticore and it's just to your army and it's just a feral manticore, nothing else. Or if it's going to be like a regiment of renown type unit where it's like, oh, there's a legendary manticore roaming around somewhere, catch him and or like beat him and then you can put him in your army. So I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work. But definitely looks interesting. Definitely looks like these might be quests that are actually worth doing. Because currently a lot of the quests are simply not worth the effort. Frostbite, this looks interesting. We already have this, or sort of this ability on Shellgeists and the Claw of Nagash for the vampire counts, their regiments of renown units, and so this will be their ability to slow enemies down could be incredibly useful. If you get into like the back line against a bunch of infantry, against a bunch of skirmishers, this could be incredibly useful. You can stop them from running away. This could mean that you can turn your battles, like a lot of times, if at the end of a fight or at the end of a battle, your enemy, in campaign, your enemy routes, and you're not able to run them all down because your infantry is too slow. This way, you might be able to slow them down to the point that they can't escape, and you can make significant victory decisive and just wipe out almost the entirety of the enemy army. This is Confederate. I'm not sure if this does seem interesting because I don't know if it's like how this is going to function. It might be that like they'll give you can confederate them when you defeat their faction. I guess this is just going to be that if you can beat their faction leader in a battle, then they'll open the option to confederate, and otherwise you have to either conquer them, like literally occupy their territory, or they simply will not confederate with you. Definitely an interesting mechanic. I'm definitely looking forward to that. It looks fun. Looks very Norsca esque. Marauder Outpost. This is also once again they remind me quite a bit of elves currently, where they can they can't build outposts anywhere. They can only build it in coastal settlements. So anywhere where there's a harbor, I assume. So probably places like Bordello, Marienburg. What else is there? Ehrengrad, those sort of settlements. They'll be able to build a outpost, and it does look like it's not quite the same as the elves. The elves don't really get any recruitment options. It's just like if you build a garrison, it's not really a town. It's just a one, and this might be the same case here. Maybe it's just that you can recruit units there, and that's all it does. And then you have a harbor for income or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. So we'll definitely see. But it looks interesting. Looks like a cool mechanic. And it can definitely like cater towards this play style where you kind of capture a coastal city and then you'll raid inland a little bit, fall back, recuperate on the coast, rinse and repeat, and sort of just push ever deeper into your enemy's territory. It just looks like a very interesting way to play. And this whole technology thing, I'm not entirely sure what this is going to do. Altdorf, Castle Drakenhof, so on. I assume this means like Karzak, Iraq, and all of these. Major faction capitals. So that seems interesting. I'm not sure what the fully developed Norscan settlements. That's very cool. That means you'll have a raiding base like deeper inland. But also, it's interesting that it says you can plunder the secrets of their original owners. I'm not entirely sure what this is going to do technology-wise, but it definitely sounds very cool. Like if you can, I don't know if you'll be able to get like gunpowder units if you conquer Empire territory, or if you'll get new lores of magic or something, or if your wizards will become better if you conquer Empire Altdorf. But for example, but definitely sounds cool. Definitely sounds interesting. Now, legendary lords, we're getting Wulfric the Wanderer and Throg the Troll King. Obviously, these factions, the split is probably basically something like Wood Elves and Arquilon. I assume Wulfric is more leaning towards the Marauder side of things, and Throg more leaning towards the monster side of things. From what it seems like, Wulfric is a really powerful duelist. However, he does, I think, have actual mount options. Unlike, so say, someone like Sigvald. So he might be more like Karl Franz in the sense that he can actually, or Grimgor, who doesn't have a mount. So it seems that he might actually be able to get on top of his enemies and actually fight them more easily. Not a fan of wind abilities. Bordello already has one, and it's not particularly good. But that's okay. It's not bad. I do like the idea that Mammoth units gain extra melee attack, and the reduced upkeep on Marauder units definitely going in that direction of the loss of Marauder units. And All units in his retinue cause fear. This is definitely useful. This makes him a bit like undead, or his army specifically is like undead, where you can terrify enemies more easily, and if you can get flanking off, then it could be absolutely devastating. And this will definitely benefit in harder modes of play, like Legendary or Very Hard, where you're otherwise heavily disadvantaged on the morale front of things. Definitely cool. And Siege Attacker, which I forgot to mention. So stupid me there. It's like, which is like Vlad. Vlad currently comes with Siege Attacker, so even though he's on foot, it'll let your army attack walled settlements, which is incredibly useful. Definitely, I think, going with that raiding mechanic where Norsca just kind of piles on and attacks a town, and then quickly gets out. They don't have to waste time building siege equipment. And then Hunter of Champions, which once again looks interesting. I don't know if this will be something that only works against characters like the Red Duke's. One of the Red Duke's abilities, like his unique ability, only affects heroes and lords, or if it's going to be more like Effigy of the Gid, where even though it sounds like it's for one hero, it's actually you can affect a whole squad with it. But definitely cool. It's basically like a Net of Mentok or Paravan Threma or Effigy of the Gid. So definitely looks interesting. Then Throg, as we saw, if you can capture Erengrad, you get some sort of unique buildings. So that's kind of like a Scarsnake or Clan Angrand or Crooked Moon type mechanic, where you can get big buffs to a specific type of unit, or some big faction buffs just from capturing a specific region. I did think he was going to spawn closer to Erengrad, but then again, if it's supposed to be like a challenge that you march over to take Erengrad, it might be the case that he spawns somewhat far away, like maybe out towards the western coast of Norsca. I'm not entirely sure. Unique magic missiles called Copious Vomit. That's interesting. And then granting physical resistance to all trolls, reducing their upkeep, so he's and immune to all forms of attrition, which is very interesting. I'm definitely not minding that. That could be incredibly potent, especially when you're trying to raid deep. Unfortunately, this is much more useful on someone like. Unfortunately, many of the factions you're probably going to be raiding are not. Don't have attrition in their territory. I don't know, and Norsca is probably immune to both Chaos and Frozen Waste attrition, maybe even Mountain Range attrition. So I don't know how useful this is going to be. It's much more useful on, for example, Durthu has this ability, but Durthu usually uses it cheese north and take Norsca and settle it. So I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work out. It's definitely interesting, though. But it could be good. We'll definitely see. I'm not entirely sure which attritions Norsca is going to be immune to, so based on that, it might be good or bad. Buffing all troll and ice trolls. I'm hoping that I'd assume he might do some morale buffs to trolls as well, because trolls currently have some of the worst morale, if not the worst morale in the game, and that makes them a kind of lackluster choice. So hopefully Throg has like maybe some unique skills, sort of like Isabella, for example, has unique skills for fell bats or a lot of her flying units. I'm hoping there's something similar for Throg and its trolls. New Lord, Marauder Chieftains. So they only get one Lord. But he gets aligned to join for one of the 4 Norscan gods, which is interesting. I'm not sure how this is going to be represented. I assume something like Khorne will improve your battle stats, something like Slaanesh might improve your income or that sort of thing. Tzeentch, maybe Sigvald, or Slaanesh might also do might also improve your leadership, for example. I'm not. Then Khorne maybe growth and healing or army loss replenishment. I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work, but it does look interesting, and you can get them mounted on a War Mammoth. There aren't any flying mounts as far as I saw for. There aren't any flying mounts as far as I saw for the Marauders, or for the Marauder Chieftain. It actually doesn't. It's interesting. That's the one thing they don't mention here is the. Let's see if I can quickly get to the blog. See the Norsca thing. Norsca army roster. Here we go. So actually, they mentioned the mounts in here, which is it's a bit of a mess, honestly. They don't present all of the units all that nicely here in the but they do give you the mounts. And so he'll be able to get a Chaos Steed, Marauder Chariot, and War Mammoth. So no Manticore option, like Chaos gets, for example. No Frostworm option, like Chaos gets the Dragon. So they're very land-based. But a War Mammoth does sound incredibly cool. Having a monstrous ground mount is interesting. Most factions currently, if it's a huge mount, it's a flying unit. And actually, that might be all of them, basically. All factions. I don't think any faction currently has a monstrous ground unit as a mount. So that's pretty awesome. I definitely don't mind it. Chaos Steed, Marauder Chariot, War Mammoth. Definitely awesome. And obviously, these might be situationally, some might be better than others. Obviously, against a missile faction, you probably want a Chaos Steed to be on foot rather than War Mammoth so they don't shoot you to death. Then the Sorcerer, Chaos Steed, Marauder Chariot. So, the Skin Wolf, yeah. So that's basically all I want to look at on their main page because everything else is better described on Steam. Then you can get 3 different types of army of heroes, which is cool. Skin Wolf Werkin. These are basically just your generic combat stats. It does look like there's a little bit of Gorbel action going on here with a strong offense, with either boosting your army's offensive or defensive stats. And I'm not sure. Like obviously, we'll see how Norsca plays out. It might be situational depending how you want to spec him. But definitely looks cool. Probably a pretty powerful melee hero, I'd assume. Maybe not that mobile because he's on foot, but we'll see. Then sorcerers. We have all the chaos lores, which is pretty awesome. Lore of death, metal, fire, shadows, and fire. Well, there's fire on the shaman and the Fimir Balefiend. So they're definitely not bad. Selection of spells. Obviously, I'd love to have that Lore of Light for Nether Mintok, but these are definitely strong spell out selections, except for maybe metal, which is probably one of the worst in the game. But you do get mounts. The Shaman Sorcerer is probably not too terrible in combat. It's sort of like the Chaos Sorcerer right now is not the worst in combat. Then the Fimir Balefiend, it does seem to be probably like an Orc Shaman a bit, where they're not terrible in combat once again. Maybe they'll be even better in combat. I'm trying to think of a comparison. Maybe like the who are they? The Wood Elf Tree Men with their spells. Maybe they'll be like that. Where they're solid in combat. Branch Wraiths are okay in combat as well. Something like that, I'd assume, will be the case here. Then Lords, yeah, we can see Marauder Chieftain, the Skin Wolf, Werkin, melee combat support. So basically, it's sort of like a Gorbel, and then your mage spellcasters. Now, infantry, we got we can see all the abilities these units are going to get. The rage mechanic, I'm not sure. I'm assuming rage might be. It's speculation. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to work. I assume rage might be a little bit like frenzy, where with high morale you do more damage. Otherwise, I could think that it's like a damage. The more damage you take, the more damage you put out. Something like that. That could also be the mechanic for Berserk. Not entirely sure. Or the longer you're in combat, you do more damage. It's definitely. I definitely assume it's going to be some sort of combat buff that applies to that unit. Probably under certain conditions, like the most commonly known, most common frenzy, or something like nasty skulkers fight better when they're winning, or flagellants fight better when they're losing, something like that. Some generic marauders, the ones we have in game. Marauder Spearmen, which is a new addition that will give them, and I don't know if the Chaos faction is going to get these guys, but that will give you a low tier anti-armor option, which is definitely nice. It's nice to see that Chaos the Norskins are going to get one baseline infantry unit to deal with heavy. They get all three types, or three major types of infantry. They'll get a great weapon unit, they'll get a anti-large unit, and then a generic kind of hold the line type of infantry, meat shield, which is pretty cool to see. That they're fairly well rounded that way. Tier 1. I guess it's kind of mandatory, given that they're a fairly infantry heavy faction and monster heavy faction, but monsters tend to be late tier. Berserkers, this looks interesting. I don't know how Berserk's going to work, once again, assuming it's a combat buff. Immune to psychology, so these guys might be a little bit like, say, Slayers, except probably more oriented towards infantry, towards killing infantry rather than large targets. Marauder Champions, I'm not, and these are another one I'm confused by. Heavy armor, so obviously going to have. I would assume this is going to have comparable armor to say Chaos Warriors or Aspiring Champions. Probably not Chosen, I'd assume, but I'm a little confused about what kind of unit this is going to be. I'm not sure if it's going to be a unit like the Aspiring Champions for Chaos, who have a small unit count, where you only have 12 models in a unit, and they kind of just there to beef up your army, but they're a small unit. Or if it's going to be just like Chaos Warriors, basically. Yeah, so that is something I'm a little not necessarily, I'm wondering about. I want to see what it's going to be. Now, Missile Infantry, Marauder Hunters with throwing axes. This is once again another interesting split. We get armor piercing on the guys with throwing axes, and we get anti-large on the guys with javelins. So it's not like a straight up upgrade or downgrade between the two. Definitely interesting. The anti-large bonus could be cool. That would make him one of the only ranged units with anti-large bonus, except I think the Hammer of Witches. I don't know if there's any others that I'm missing off the top of my head. Then Chariots, Ice Wolf Chariot, which causes fear, and Frostbite, definitely nifty. Unfortunately, Chariots are a bit of a niche unit, but definitely you could make use out of this Frostbite to run enemy units down, and that sort of thing. And obviously get those rear charges. Chariots are powerful when microed correctly. Marauder Horsemen, the usual selection. You don't have any close combat cav. Marauder Horsemasters can, from what I've played with, I've played them for Chaos, obviously, a little bit. They can do okay as like a light rundown enemy skirmish units cavalry, but no shock cav, no melee cav, nothing like Chaos Knights. So fairly limited there, but you do get the throwing axes with armor piercing, which actually, interesting enough, that's not mentioned here. I don't know if they're not going to get armor piercing. I assume they will, because otherwise it wouldn't be very much of a reason to take them over generic Marauder Horseman. It was probably just omitted and missed. But they do get the rage mechanic, so they might actually be better than. Assuming this is a straight combat buff, they might be better than the mechanics that might be expected. Assuming it applies to ranged units like ranged combat stats as well. Then we have their monsters, and the monsters. This is reaching the end of the list here. Norscan Warhounds, which I assume are basically, their scaly skin is missile resistance probably. They're basically going to be like Chaos Warhounds. And then Ice Wolves, which are basically like, I assume they're going to be like Poison Warhounds, except they cause fear, which is interesting. Fear is definitely awesome. And they cause Frostbite, which I think that they're going to be better at running down, say, Skirmish Cav, because if they can get close enough to hit them, they'll slow them. I assume Frostbite is going to be more potent than Poison is for the speed debuff, and Poison speed debuff is already pretty significant, so this could be definitely a big boost. Cause Fear, nifty so for rear charges, especially early on when you're probably going to be fighting, for most part, Empire and other Norscan factions. Norscan Trolls, basically just generic trolls as far as I can tell. Norscan Ice Trolls, same thing, except they cause Frostbite. Now, I'm not sure, once again, I saw those pictures up above, and I'm not sure if they're going to be the single model unit or a 9 model unit, or maybe a smaller unit like the Norscan Trolls. I'm not entirely sure. Or like generic trolls. Feral Manticore, scaly skin, I guess, causes fear, causes terror. I'm not actually sure if the generic Manticore causes terror. Maybe it does. It's pretty cool though. It's a Manticore, not a bad unit at all. Skin Wolves seem to be really strong. This seems to be sort of. I'm trying to think of a comparison unit here that has physical resistance. Probably something like Savage Orcs, I'd think, a little bit. Except these guys even have armor, so they have physical resistance and probably do lots of damage. They're anti-large. They have Frenzy. They don't have Rage, so I assume that Rage and Frenzy are probably fairly similar mechanics. Maybe. I do believe the Berserks. Yeah, Berserks also don't have Rage, so I think Rage is going to be similar to Frenzy in some sort of way. Maybe it's a worse version of Frenzy. You get anti-large here. So we'll definitely see. These do look like a pretty cool unit. And I'm not sure if it's going to be a like small 9-man squad like the Trolls, or if it's going to be a probably not a single model. It's plural. Skin Wolves plural. And actually, given that this is saying Skin Wolves plural, or Norscan Ice Trolls plural, this is probably going to be a squad. Or I'd hope so. And then Familiar Warriors. These are the guys who I had no idea what they were. They do cause fear from the mist, which I have no idea what that mechanic does. It might be some sort of like, I don't know. We'll see. Could be some sort of stalk ability. Armor Sundering. This could be useful. And now I'm not. There are some units in here who, as far as I can tell, aren't. A lot of the Norscan units, as far as I can tell, are not armor piercing. And armor is a percentage-based debuff to your damage. The only units they have that deal with armor well are the some of their monsters, I think, are going to have armor piercing. And then obviously some of these maybe actually they could be I think, oh, never mind. I think they omitted armor piercing, which is unfortunate. But armor sundering is still a good ability, reducing enemy armor by 30, assuming it's just like the other armor sunderings we have in game. Incredibly nifty. It means that something like Empire has absolutely 0 armor on their infantry that's being attacked. Just really nifty in general. Magical attacks, which will be good against ethereal units, not so good against dwarves, and the handful of magic resistant units. Familiar Warriors, cause fear from the mist, armor sundering, anti-large. With great weapons. Now, they're not mentioning any magical attacks here, so maybe these guys don't have magic attacks. I'm not entirely sure. They're just the Norscans do seem to have a lot of anti-large units, so that's kind of cool. And they're rare monsters and beasts. So I guess these might be the monsters you get from completing your quests in campaign that you can't recruit normally. You might only be obviously in quick play. You're probably going to be able to just get all of them, but I assume that this is where you're going to be cut off. I could be wrong, but I do think that this is where you're going to be cut off on your normal tech tree. The best you can get is Fimir and Skinwolves, and then if you want better units, you have to go hunt them down. I think that now looking at it now again, I think this might be the case. Norscan Giant, Siege Attacker, cause fear, of course. This is Giant, as far as I can tell. Feral Mammoth, I'm not sure how different this is going to be from the Giant. I assume it's going to be stronger, probably a bit tankier, maybe even than a Giant. Maybe a little more armor. I don't know. If its fur provides it with that much armor. Maybe a little quicker. We'll see. But I assume it's going to be fairly similar to the Norscan Giant. Maybe a little more splash damage too. Probably because it's bigger, it's also going to have an easier time crushing multiple units underneath, so it will get more damage out through its sheer mass. Frostworm, Shelling Aura, which is nifty. That is exactly, I think, the thing that Hexwraiths and the Claw of Nagash have. And then on top of Frostbite, that's going to make these guys incredibly potent, I think. War Mammoth, Anti-Large Javelin. So basically, this is going to be a unit that, and I do think these guys are all going to get armor piercing. Trolls probably armor piercing. This and throwing axes, horsemen with throwing axes, armor piercing. I think that's just been omitted, and it's kind of a bit of lazy, but oh well. War Mammoth, anti-large javelins, which will be interesting. Extra damage output is always good. Unfortunately, considering if you play orcs, you see the Ragnarok Spider, almost nobody uses it for the ranged. Simply put, the range damage output is nowhere near good enough to make it worthwhile. It's only 1 unit. The range is going to be fairly short, probably. And even with more rate of fire or more projectiles going out, it's not going to be comparable to, say, your squad of Marauder Hunters with javelins. You're going to want to get into melee. So I'm not sure the War Mammoth with generic War Mammoth will be all that worthwhile. However, if there is a leadership buff, it might be worthwhile. I'm not sure if there will be, but there could be a leadership buff. Then finally, the War Mammoth with the War Shrine, which Giver of Glory, I have no clue what that is. I don't know. Maybe leadership buff or something. I don't know. I assume there's going to be some leadership buffs in here. And then Favor of the Ruinous Powers. Maybe it's a buff based on what sort of... Maybe you can choose which icon you want to give it, which icon of chaos you want to give it, which chaos god you want to represent. I'm not sure. But it does look like a general AoE buff machine there. So definitely a cool looking list of infantry, monsters, cavalry. That hunt mechanic could potentially be incredibly useful depending on how difficult it is to pull off. And it's obviously in some cases, if it's a lot of quests, even if the rewards are nice, they're often not worthwhile just because they're so far out of your way. So we'll see how well CA does on implementing that, making the quests not be worthwhile, but at the same time not be too easy. We'll see how they can balance that out. Um, Other than that, definitely looks like a cool faction. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Norsca released. Definitely going to be doing probably a playthrough of it on my channel here as soon as it's released. The release date is, I do believe, August 10th. Here at the, actually, I think I had it here. End of the no, it's blog. August 10th, yes. I'm not sure we do have this information on Norsca. There wasn't any new information on an old friend. I know a lot of people are hyped about that. Personally, I'm still hoping it's Alter Kamerad, the steam tank with a Hellblaster, but I don't think that's going to be it. Definitely not going to speculate on what it is. Hyped though, hoping it's good. Definitely hyped from Norsca. Amazing trailer. It's free if you pre-order Total War Warhammer 2. If you don't want to do that, you can always just pre-order it on Steam as a single faction. And once it's released, I will definitely be doing some playthroughs, some gameplay videos of Norsca. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, feel free to like or subscribe down below. And as I said before, even if you didn't, feel free to comment, critique, tell me how I can do better on my videos. I'll be sure to read your comments and respond as quickly as I can. Thank you all for watching, and Wyvern out.